Welcome to a brand new episode of the Fit Women's Weekly podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. I hope that you hear something in this episode that makes you want to come back and listen to future episodes. If that's the case, please make sure to do me a favor. Subscribe to the podcast, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to your favorite podcast platform, and leave a review. It really does help, and it would mean so much to me. For today's episode, I am actually really excited to go over this with you guys. My husband sent me a news report that just came out actually this month, and it's entitled Breakfast Foods Affect Weight Loss, Metabolism Differently for Men versus Women. And then that got me thinking about how for so long women were treated as just little men, right? Biological men, biological women. Basically just saying that everything is the same, except that women, because we're smaller, need less calories. Now, obviously, because of updated science and research, we know that that's not the case. Our bodies are very different physiologically, anatomically, neurologically, in all different ways. So I decided it would be fun to head over to ChatGPT and simply dig into him a little bit and say, like, what are the differences? Should we be working out, men versus women, when it comes to how we lift weights or how we do our cardio workouts? So first, before we dive into all of that, let's go into the article that actually sparked this episode and dive into breakfast foods affect weight loss, metabolism differently for men versus women. There was a study in October 2024, so this guy is brand spanking new, published in Computers and Biology and Medicine Science, suggests that males and females eat for breakfast can affect them in very different ways. The researchers found that males do best with carb-rich diets, oatmeal, for example, and then females, on the other hand, had a better metabolic response to breakfast heavy in fat. The researchers suggest that these differences could be used to tailor people's diets to their needs, helping to support weight loss and improve energy. Now, the one thing, they make it sound so black and white. If you are a male, you should have a carb-focused breakfast. If you are a female, you should have a fat-heavy breakfast. But at the end of the day, our bodies are all so different, and there is not one size fits all when it comes to nutrition. What works for me doesn't necessarily work for you, and so this is where it really comes down to not being afraid to experiment when it comes to your own nutrition. As long as you're not doing yourself any kind of harm, when people ask me, hey, what do you think if I try this out? I say, give it a shot, after at least give yourself 2 to 4 weeks to experiment with any kind of nutrition plan. If after that 2 to 4 weeks, you're not feeling better than how you were before, then you know that maybe that's not working for you. If after that 2 to 4 weeks, you're like, oh my God, I feel so much better. My body feels better. I'm less bloated. I have more energy. Then you know that you are on the right path, and things could always change. For example, I decided to experiment with the carnivore diet. Gosh, what was that? 2 years ago now, and it started off great. I felt awesome from the get-go. Like, my bloating was gone. I dropped a couple of pounds. I had energy. My workouts felt great. It was great until it wasn't great anymore. And that took about 2 to 3 months where I started to have some just really bad side effects that I wasn't expecting. Night terrors, for example. All of a sudden my energy levels did crash, and as soon as I changed up the carnivore diet, I went back to feeling fine. The night terrors went away and my energy came back because I was including a little bit more carbohydrates. So basically, I just want to say, always be open to trying something. It might work for a while, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you failed at that. It just means your body needs to run off of something different. I also love to remind people that sometimes we don't even know when we're not feeling our best. So if anything is ever of interest to you, and if this article makes you go, hey, maybe I'm going to try something a little bit more fat forward in my breakfast, then absolutely go for it. I actually forgot, where was I going with this? Anyways, don't be afraid to experiment with your nutrition. So let's go a little bit more. Let's dive a little bit deeper into this. So how does the effect of breakfast choice on metabolism, or how the effect of breakfast choices on metabolism was studied? The team reached this conclusion after creating a mathematical model of metabolisms for both males and females. And I think that this is really important because this shows that the study wasn't done on actual people. And basically that means it took out all of the parts, right? All of the variables that could interfere. Anytime that we're studying nutrition with actual human subjects, it's very hard because it's hard for a person to stick to that program, adhere to it 100%. So there's always going to be some lifestyle choices, maybe stress going on in the life, maybe they're just not able to dedicate to the program as much as the scientists would like. And so by creating a mathematical model, it helps take those out to get a more realistic, I guess, more scientific result. The model included feeding and fasting scenarios in healthy young people. It additionally addressed metabolic responses to both high carb and high fat meals at the organ and whole body levels. Specifically, they modeled the activities of the brain, the heart, skeletal muscle, gastrointestinal tract, liver, and fat tissue. The study's stated goal was to examine how carbohydrates and fats are metabolized through the body and various organs. They also wanted to learn more about what might be driving metabolic differences. The author said that the purpose of creating a mathematical model was to use existing data to quickly test hypotheses and refine studies without having to conduct more human studies. Because also remember too, when it comes to nutrition, you can't just have somebody do a diet for a week and then get any real data from that's going to help us move forward in how we look at nutrition for males or females. It takes time, and which means the longer that you're trying to study somebody on a specific diet, the harder it is for them to actually adhere to that for the long time goal, right? If you were to tell me to eat a high fat breakfast every morning, okay, I can do that for probably a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But over time, there's going to be times where I go out to dinner or go out of town and the only thing available to me is an English muffin and some oatmeal, right? And so then that one time could kind of throw off the overall results. Whereas with this, they're able to throw all the information into the model and instantly get it out without having to put people through a trial and error sort of experiment. Examining gender differences in metabolism can help us learn more about customizing nutrition for unique needs of females. Why breakfast choices can affect men and women different. I'm going to read through this, and then I also want to start talking about, like I mentioned, the actual difference between biological men, biological female, and other areas of our life. So Catherine Gervasio, a registered nutrition and certified exercise nutrition coach, who is not a part of the study, said one reason that males and females respond differently is that males tend to have more muscle mass. We know that. It's a biological difference between the two of us. She says that means that men tend to use carbs quick for energy, while females tend to use more body fat. Again, that makes more sense because carbohydrates are stored as glycogen in our muscle tissue. So for men who have more muscle mass, right, that means that their body is going to store more glycogen, which makes sense that that would be one of their preferred methods. Not to mention, and we'll talk about more of this in just a second, men have more type 2 muscle fibers, which are fast twitch, fast energy source. So they need a lot of glycogen, a lot of creatine phosphate to fire that off. Whereas women tend to have more body fat. Thank you for estrogen, right? We hold more body fat. Body fat is an energy storage, so that makes more sense that if we eat fat, our body wants to hold on to it. But don't worry, it doesn't mean that just because you eat fat, you store fat. That also means that we are more efficient as using fat as an energy source, and that's where the study comes in. So the result of a female's long-term energy reserves burns more fat more efficiently, according to Gervasio, which is exactly what I just said. This means that men usually rely on carbs for energy, especially during activities. Again, what I just said, because they're holding it in their muscle, they get it burned off during their energy, while women's bodies are better at using fat, especially at times for resting or fasting. Hormonal differences also play a role. Hormones like estrogen in women promote fat storage and fat burning, particularly during fasting or when energy is needed over a longer period of time, where on the other hand, men's hormones such as testosterone support more muscle growth, so their metabolism is more geared towards breaking down carbs for immediate energy. And this is also part of why a lot of studies show that women are actually better at long bouts of cardio. We're talking about like ultra endurance events. Studies continue to show that women might actually be more adapted to be able to handle those long bouts of cardio than men. And that's because we're able to tap into our fat reserves more and better to be able to continue to move our bodies for longer periods of time. Whereas men who are more reliant on their carbohydrates go away within about an hour of exercise. So if you're trying to do long bursts, but your body's not very adept at being able to use its fat storage for energy, that's when you're going to be able to bonk. So I'm kind of curious to see if maybe we'll try, if I remember to look this up as well once we start studying a little bit more. Are men more prone to bonking during long bouts of exercise than females? And if you guys don't know what bonking is, congratulations. Bonking is basically when you are working out and you hit that brick wall. Your energy just tanks. You tend to get sick. You can't concentrate on what you're doing anymore. And the idea of like trying to work through a bonk is very hard. You got to get some energy into your body. You got to get some fuel, some calories. So Gervasio pointed to the different energy and nutrient needs of males versus females. Due to different muscle to fat ratios and how organs use energy, men and women's bodies prioritize different nutrients. This results in women being more efficient at conserving and using fats, while men's bodies burn through carbs faster for quick bursts of energy, which is exactly what we just talked about. And I find this very, very interesting. Now, the one thing that I don't want anyone to take from this article is that you should be eating a breakfast of just fats or just carbohydrates if you're a guy, right? At the end of the day, our body needs all the macronutrients. And what they don't talk about here is protein. Now, I talk about protein all the time in this podcast, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole talking about how important it is or how much you need, but I will stress that I wish that they had talked about how these breakfasts maybe should be tailored to the macronutrient that they're talking about, carbs or fats, with a heavy dose on both sides of protein. And so just a couple of examples of some good options for women that would be a higher fat would be something like a breakfast bowl with some sausage or bacon and eggs, right? Or an omelet would be a really great choice. Or a whole fat Greek yogurt, like parfait with some granola to get some healthy carbs in there and maybe even mixed in with a little bit of some protein powder. So you're getting the high fat from the yogurt. You're also getting a great dose of protein for the yogurt, and we're adding a little bit more protein by adding in a little bit of some protein supplement powder, whether that is whey or if you're using some sort of vegan blend, that's fine. And then for guys, I feel like we have no problem talking about what's a good carb source breakfast. You think bagels with some cream cheese, you think cereal, which if you wanted to have cereal, I'm all about having what you want and then adding what you need. So while cereal is a great carb source, you also want to add in some maybe whole fat milk to get a good dose of healthy fats, and then sprinkle in some whey protein into that too, or top it with a dollop of Greek yogurt so that you also get a good dose of protein with that as well. Waffles, same idea. Waffle, great carb source. Top it with some Greek yogurt, maybe a little bit of some nut butter at the same time to get that healthy protein and the healthy fats in there. Take that as you will. I would love to know what is not your favorite, because there's a difference between what's your favorite breakfast and what's the breakfast that makes you feel best. For me personally, I have a protein shake every morning. It just goes down easy. I sip it while I'm starting my morning. I do it this is after I do have a cup of water to start the day. And then it's a blend of coffee, a blend of whey protein, a knob of ginger, and then sometimes I'll add some kind of fruit to it, like a banana. Yeah, banana coffee. It actually tastes fantastic. So that way that I know that I'm getting the protein. I'm also getting a good little bit source of carbohydrate in there as well. My body, I actually don't do a lot of fat first thing in the morning because I work out in the morning. Fat can make me feel very slow, very heavy, very weighed down. And since I have to get on camera for my workouts, it's not a feeling that I want to portray to my Fit Women's Weekly Live clients. So that's just how I am. However, my lunch, I do make sure to have a higher source of fat in there to kind of compensate, where I'll put a salad together with some avocado or some tahini butter, some olive oil on top to help balance it out. So that's the way that I navigate things. let's move, because like I mentioned, I wanted to find out, how are we actually different? And I don't mean this as just like, this is just for fun, y'all. This is a blanket statement, but I thought it would be a good way to kind of finish up this little chit chat. So I did go to good old Google, and you guys know how nowadays Google will have the AI on the top of the search results. But then I did also go over to Chat GPT to ask some questions too. So how are women and men different? Number one, biologically, men have thicker skin, which I actually did not know that. More muscle mass. Absolutely, we did know that, and higher testosterone levels than women. Women have wider hips and store more fat in their breasts, hips, and buttocks. Those are things that we've all been told our entire life. Physically, men have broader jaws, thicker eyebrows. Did not realize that was a difference between men and women, so that was interesting. And more prominent facial features than women. I need to show this to Dan because he has such a chiseled jaw that he always just thinks that he's like genetically special. It's an ongoing joke, don't worry. So now I just need to be like, no, it's just because you're a man. That's why you get that jawline. Nutritionally, men require more calories and protein than women. Women need more iron than men, especially from the ages of 14 to 51, because that's our menstrual cycle age, right? When we are menstruating, we have to make sure that we are getting iron. If you've ever been iron deficient, you know that it is not good. I've gone through a couple of periods off and on throughout my adult life of being low in iron and being anemic. And I can always tell when I'm having iron issues because I will look at a steak and go, oh my gosh, I just want to put a straw in that raw steak and suck it up. And I know that that's disgusting. And when I have those thoughts, that's like, all right, I need to go get my blood work done and then I need to get it fixed. And luckily, I've always been able to manage it and come out of being that in that anemic state, but always look out for little symptoms like that. See, also, when it comes to nutritionally, men burn about 2,000 to 2,450 calories per day, while women burn about 1,600 to 1,950 calories per day, not including calories burned from exercise. But I think it is also important to remember that the number of calories that you burn depends on a lot of factors. There's not one size fits all again. And there's no blanket statement of being like, oh, you're a 5'1" woman, you burn 1,723 calories per day. It doesn't work like that. There are factors including your age, height, weight, genetics, and activity level. So I also wanted to just make sure, I did say this, that women burn about 1,600 to 1,900 calories per day. That does not include the amount of exercise that they are doing. And then the best way to figure out how many calories you burn each day is you can get a rough estimate just by going online and typing in calorie estimator. You'll find your basal metabolic rate and then start playing around with it. Track your food from one day to the next, trying to hit those calories for about 2 weeks, and then see, does your weight change? If your weight goes up, then you know that you're eating in a surplus. If your weight goes down, you're in a deficit. And if your weight doesn't move, then you're in a maintenance zone. One thing that I think people get confused is when you calculate your calories, let's say that you're told that you have to eat 1,700 calories, right? And we think we have to get that 1,700. And if we eat 1,701, then we're going to go into a surplus. Where in reality, it's more of like a bracket amount, you know, like our nutrition, because every day is a little bit different, our body moves different, our nutritional requirements and our metabolic needs are different from one day to the next. What you need one day might be 1,600 calories, but then the next day is 1,700 calories. So that's why it's important to track so that you can find that average and then see how things flow with your weight. Again, if that is important to you. When it comes to metabolic health, men have faster metabolisms that burn calories, while women's metabolism converts more food to fat thanks to hormones, which actually takes us right back to the article that we just read. That makes sense. For weight loss, men tend to lose weight faster than women because of more lean muscle mass, which burns more calories at rest. Men also have more insulin receptors in their muscles, which means that their blood sugar is often metabolized more quickly. And on average, men burn 500 to 1,000 more calories per day than women, which can result in losing 1 to 2 pounds more per week. And we have all been there. If you have a male that is your significant other, and you two have tried to lose weight at the same time, it can be extremely frustrating. For Dan, he can be like, you know what, I'm just going to cut wine out. he doesn't drink a ton of wine per week. He does drink wine, but at the fact that he can just cut out wine for about 2 weeks and his six pack comes back drives me up a wall. And I know that we have all been there before, but that's because of that testosterone difference, right? His muscle mass difference. And I think that that is interesting that they have more insulin receptors in their muscles, which obviously would play a role in that too. We just have to try a little bit harder, y'all. Our body, being a female, wants to hold on to body fat. It wants to make sure that we have enough body fat to that point that if we were to reproduce, we're able to maintain a healthy pregnancy. Even when we don't want to be pregnant, our body, that's literally the job of animals, right? Is to reproduce and to carry on with our race, or with, you know what I'm trying to say. Even if we don't want to do that. So our body is always trying to be its healthiest possible in order to carry a baby, which is crazy. Men also have higher metabolic rates and larger bones than women. However, women can burn more muscle and burn more calories through strength training at least twice a week, which I thought that was funny that it added in there. I don't think that women can build more muscle than men. I just think that men naturally have more muscle because they've been training most consistently through life. It's easier for them to build muscle. And so when they start to weight train, it's kind of like a beginner gains versus someone who's not a beginner. Somebody who's a complete beginner, when they first work out, they are going to get gains very, very fast. So for women, if you're not used to strength training and then you start strength training, you are going to build more muscle mass. Whereas if you're a guy and you've been building muscle throughout your life, and then you start adding in extra strength training or strength training again, maybe you took a break or whatever, you're not going to get the gains as fast. So I don't think it's that women gain more muscle mass from strength training. I just think it's they're starting from a lower place. And so it seems like they're doing it when really they're just kind of catching up, if that makes sense. Women's circadian rhythms are more likely to be shorter than 24 hours. So I guess that's funny when we all say that everyone's 24 hours is different. It's a little bit true. Men have 24 hours. Our bodies are like 22 hours. We're done. We need to sleep. And I think that's just because our brains are going all the time. That's at least what I'm going to say. How are our brains different from men to women? Women's brains have stronger and more vivid memories of emotional events, and the two hemispheres of women's brains communicate more than men. Well, that makes sense. That also explains why we are more emotional. I think that is also obviously because of our hormones too. I am sure my husband wishes I was not as an emotional person as I am. I will absolutely admit I am a very emotional person. I cry at least once a week. If I can go 2 days in a row without tearing up over something, we're having a good week. And I've always been like that. I'm also very much an empath. I consider my husband is very sympathetic, or he tries to be, but he's also able to remove himself a lot easier. Whereas when I see something going on, I carry the weight of other people's emotions. And so, yeah, absolutely big difference between men and women. Behavioral. Men perform better on visuospatial tasks, so things that they can see visually, while women prefer better on verbal tasks. Again, makes sense. How many times have you told your husband something and he doesn't remember? Men also take more extreme choices and make more extreme choices and decisions than women. As someone who works with their spouse, I will also confirm this. I'm the one that's got to sit back. I say, I'm going to think about this for a while. I'll get back to you. Whereas he's the one, I kind of let him be the final decision maker because he's the one that pushes me to make the big choices, which is important. I don't think that one is better than the other. I think that it's important to have two people together that's kind of where one is saying, hey, let's look at the bigger picture. And then the other person that says, okay, you've looked at the bigger picture. If we're going to move forward, we need to do it and do it now. You got to kind of be pushed off the ledge sometimes. And then psychologically, men are more likely to be outward, explorative, determined, and competitive, while women are more likely to be inwardly directed, caring, and modest. Now, obviously with that one, it is not a one size fits all because, to be honest, I'm very inwardly directed. I do beat myself up. I have the voice in my head. I don't need to be told by anybody else what to do. I can handle that on my own. But however, I'm very explorative. I am very determined. I am very competitive. I am caring, but I am not modest and I am not shy. It took me a long time, and I feel like that's not necessarily a woman-man thing. I think that that's also just an aging thing. As you get older, you take less from other people, you stand up for yourself, and I think that we've also moved into a time where it's more okay for women to stand up for themselves and not be modest. We are kind of raised like, oh, be ladylike, and we're redefining what being ladylike means. And for me, I'm pretty happy about that. And now, last thing, I told you guys, this is a fun conversation today. I went over to Chat GPT and I asked, should men and women work out differently? And here's what he had to say. He, it, she, I don't know. I have he for Chat GPT. Well, there are some physiological differences between men and women. The core principles of effective workouts are generally the same for both. Good job. Love it. Goals. Individual fitness goals like building muscle, losing weight, or improving your endurance should guide your workout plans no matter your gender. Absolutely agree with that. However, in order to have the healthiest, most balanced life possible, it is important that you should focus on strength training, you should focus on cardiovascular fitness, and you should also focus on mobility and stretching. Those are the three elements that no matter whether you are a man, a woman, you should include into your training every single week. I think for most of us, the stretching is the one that gets neglected the most, and especially for men. I don't think that stretching, I think it's becoming more popular, but I think that it was something that was very much seen as more of a feminine activity for a long time, so men stayed away from it, but that should not be the case. Number 2, hormonal differences. Men typically have higher testosterone, which can influence muscle mass and recovery, which women may benefit from specific training approaches that align with their hormonal cycles. That is kind of more new science. Some science does show that yes, training for your cycle may be beneficial, while a lot of science shows that that is not actually the case. Though it does show that energy levels are different for a woman throughout her cycle, that I believe it's actually the first day of your cycle you have the most energy, that you might be able to perform the best. You might feel the crappiest, but your strength or your endurance might be the best. And that's going to change from one person to the next. I am not going to be one of those people that says during your luteal phase, you need to be doing only Pilates and yoga. If you follow that kind of training template, you're only going to have one solid good week where you're supposed to be going intense or lifting heavy. And that's not going to give you enough consistency to actually build muscle, build the cardiovascular endurance that you need to be a healthy person. So just something to keep in mind. We've talked about this before. If you want me to talk about it more, let me know. Number 3, energy prevention. Women might be more prone to certain injuries like ACL tears, so specific strength training for joint stability is important. That is because of our hips and the way that our hips out, which means our femurs have more of an angle to come back in, and that can put a lot of stress on our knees, which is why ACL tears are more prevalent in females. So I think it is extremely important for women to focus more on their leg strength, such as their quads, to build their knees and their ankles for flexibility as well, and to be able to help with that overall fitness performance goals. Whereas I don't think that they really talk about this. Well, they do in the next part, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself. And then finally, number 4, personal preference. Ultimately, individual preferences, experience, and comfort should dictate workout choices regardless of gender. Basically, what's going to have you coming back from one workout to the next so that you can stay consistency. Consistency above perfection. Consistency is what drives results. And so if you're doing a training program that you hate, you're not going to be consistent with it. However, if you are looking for a program that you can be consistent with, Fit Women's Weekly Live is launching my Ignite 30 program on November 4th. Ignite is a 30-day training plan for beginners and advanced. I've actually created 2 different training plans, so you get to decide where you are on your fitness. Every single day for the 30 days, I have it outlined what workouts you should do, unless it's a rest day, as well as fit quickies and nutritional challenges as well. Each week I lay out, hey, Do this fitness challenge every day for the 7 days. It's only going to take 5 minutes or less, but those little challenges can add up over time. And then the same with nutrition. Each week I give you a new nutrition focus so that you can make sure that your fitness goals are aligning with your nutritional goals so that you can actually see results. And you get access to me for all 30 days, and you can sign up. It's just a start and a stop. I have learned that a lot of people enjoy, especially when they're trying a new program out, to have something that's like, I'm going to start it on this day, it's going to go to this day, because it holds them accountable and it keeps them motivated so they can stay consistent. So if that's something that you're interested in, Ignite 30 is now open. I know I've been talking about it for a long time, but it is officially open for registration. I will put the link down below in the show notes. There are only 50 spots available, so go learn more and hold your spot. And it starts November 4th. And the best part is, if you sign up and you do the challenge, and after the challenge you go, I didn't see the results that I wanted, let me know and I'll refund you your money. If you loved the program but you still want your money back, ask and I'll refund your money. You literally have nothing to lose. This is like the craziest guarantee I've ever offered, but I'm standing behind this program so much that I'm not afraid to offer it to you. So go learn more and grab one of the spots. Moving on, the very, very last thing was, what's the difference in upper body mass between the two sexes? I think that you've probably heard, we always make fun of like the gym guys because they skip leg day, right? And we don't really make fun of the girls for skipping because we see that they can't do pull-ups or push-ups. We don't make fun of you for that. And I would never make fun of you, but it's pretty obvious that men are stronger upper body while women tend to focus a little bit more with their lower body. So there are several key differences in upper body muscle development between men and women, largely influenced by biology and hormones. One, muscle mass. Men generally have higher overall muscle mass, particularly in the upper body due to testosterone, which leads to larger muscles in chest, arms, and shoulders. Absolutely makes sense. Distribution. Men tend to accumulate muscle in the upper body more than women, who has a more balanced distribution of muscle mass across the body, but women often develop strength in their lower body more readily due to anatomical and hormonal differences. So that's interesting. Number 3, strength differences. On average, men may be able to lift heavier weights in the upper body, like bench press and pull-ups, than women. However, women can still build significant strength and muscle through consistent training. Duh. I just want to stress the fact with this part is that don't be afraid to spend a little bit extra time working on your upper body. I have so many people that are like, my upper body is crap. Okay, well then maybe instead of doing a 2 and 2, like if you're doing a split workout where you do 2 days lower body and 2 days upper body, if you've been spending the past several years of your life focusing on doing it even, and you're like, my lower body is very strong, but I'm not balanced in my upper body, then maybe start focusing on trying to get 1 lower body, 1 total body workout, and then 2 upper body workouts. That way you're putting extra emphasis on your upper body to really balance things out, and so that you can say, my upper body has gotten really, really strong. And then the next part is muscle fiber composition. There can be variations in muscle fibers between sexes. Men generally have higher proportions of type 2 fast twitch, which is more conducive to strength and power. So that means that they're able to lift more. When you have more type 2 muscle fibers, that's where power and explosion comes from. Whereas, like I mentioned earlier, that means that women most likely have more type 1 muscle fibers, which is more conducive to cardiovascular exercises and long endurance training, being able to maintain the muscle movements. And then 5, response to training. Both men and women can experience substantial gains in strength and muscle mass with resistance training, though the rate and extent may vary based on individual genetics, training methods, and nutrition, right? Men have forever thought it was okay to get their protein, get in their creatine, whereas that's really just something that's new to us women, being like, hey, I got to get my 130 grams of protein in. That's going to help with that muscle mass. And also, for so long, we've been thought to want to stay in a deficit, right? Forever, I was like, I'm a woman. I need to eat salads. I need to be in a deficit. I need to lose weight. Well, when you're in a caloric deficit, you can't add muscle mass. You have to make sure that you're fueling your body and giving it all of the sources of energy that it needs to be able to not only repair, but to rebuild. So that's some of the differences between men and women. Let's see, the last part, it says, despite these differences, it's important to recognize that both men and women can achieve impressive results in their upper body strength with the right training program tailored to their goals. Which, to me, sounds like a free pitch from ChatGPT that you should sign up for Fit Women's Weekly and our Ignite 30 Challenge program. What do you think? Again, I'll make sure to put the link down below, but honestly, you guys, if you're not seeing the results with your workouts, you're not staying consistent, if you're in a workout rut, you're bored, it's time to change things up and let's start seeing some real results. And Ignite 30 could really do that. And again, I will put it down in the show notes, or you can visit fitwomensweekly.com and right up on the front page, you'll see the Ignite 30, be able to get all the information. And then if you're ready to sign up and grab your spot, you can do it right there. It is a one-time payment. It is not a recurring payment. You sign up, you get the access to it from November 4th until it is over. However, there is also an option to be able to sign up and then keep everything for life as well. So definitely check that out. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. That was fun. We covered a lot of material. If you have any questions about that, let me know. I could always do a follow-up episode on this, or if you have a question that doesn't have anything to do with this, still let me know and I can do a upcoming episode to answer your questions. We haven't done a Q&A in a long time. I think it's time. Okay, go have yourself an amazing day. Go get your workouts in. Focus on the stuff that you are not so great at. What are your weaknesses? What do you need to get better at? And continue to kick butt. Thank you so much. And remember to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and leave a review or a comment. Thanks, guys. Bye.